Okay, Becky.
This question comes from Himanshu Bandal for Ajit and Warren. Autonomous vehicles are already driving across roads in American cities with no driver involvement. How do Warren and Ajit think about any disruption risk from these autonomous vehicles to Geico's auto insurance business, which is built around understanding and underwriting human drivers? Wouldn't what we call auto insurance today just become product liability for autonomous vehicles and autonomous software companies?
Well, Ajit.
Yeah, there's no question that insurance for automobiles is going to change dramatically once self-driving cars become a reality. The big change that we will see is what you identified. Most of the insurance that is sold and bought revolves around operator errors and how often they happen, how severe they are, and therefore what premium we ought to charge. To the extent these new self-driving cars are more safe and are involved in fewer accidents, that insurance will be less required. Instead, it'll be substituted by, as you mentioned, product liability. So we at Geico and elsewhere are certainly trying to get ready for that switch, where we move from providing insurance for operator errors and be more ready to provide protection for product errors and omissions in the construction of these automobiles.
Yeah, we expect change in all our businesses, and good thing we did. Charlie pushed me into it, but if I'd settled for being in New England textiles, and even though it worked well for 70 years or so prior there too, the world changes, and if the game didn't change at all, it really would be very interesting. If every time you swung at a baseball, you hit a home run, the game wouldn't be interesting. If every time you hit a golf ball, you had a hole in one, it wouldn't be interesting. The fact that there will be things you have to think about all the time as you go along, and you'll make mistakes and all that, that's really part of the fun. I mean, your brain would turn to mush if you didn't have a few problems now and then. So auto insurance will change, although it's remarkable how little it has changed. But it's only been around since, for a relatively small time, and who knows what we're doing to move in transportation 100 years from now. If you go back a couple hundred years ago, who could have predicted the United States would look like what it does, and people would move like they do, and people would enjoy themselves like they do? And I mean, it's just it's a dynamic world, and the biggest thing we have to worry about, unfortunately, is that we've learned how to destroy the world too, and in recent years, and so we've got this wonderful world, which now we know that there are 8 countries that, and probably a 9th coming on, that can destroy, and we don't have what I would consider necessarily the perfect people leading each one of the 9 or some of the 9 countries. And when Einstein came up with E equals MC squared back in 1905, he didn't dream of the fact, that energy could really be converted, or mass could be converted into energy in a way that would change the world. When I was born in 1930, they had known about the law of physics that Einstein had come up with. 25 years earlier, nobody, to my knowledge, had thought, what can this do to change warfare in the future? And literally, it just wasn't thought. Einstein didn't think about it at that point. And then in 1939, Roosevelt got a letter around a month before Germany moved into Poland. It got around August 1st. It's the most famous letter in history from Leo Szilard. Leo Szilard couldn't get his letter in front of Roosevelt because whoever heard of Leo Szilard, but he got Einstein to sign it. And Roosevelt probably understood about as much about physics as I do, so he didn't understand it, but he understood that Einstein signed it. So he calls in General Grover, may not have been general then, and said, we should do something about this. And all we did was learn how to destroy the world, and we needed to do it. And Germany had Heisenberg, and he looked like he was ahead of us. And we can't put that genie back in the bottle. And the world does change, and we've got wonderful things, but we also have, we have a guy in North Korea. If we criticize his haircut, even, who knows what he might decide to do with. What does North Korea need nuclear weapons for? I mean, can that be a good thing in the world? But they're not going to go away. So it's a world of change, and we are enjoying incredible change that's contributed everybody in this room living so much better than people were living a couple of 100 years ago. But we haven't been able to avoid. We haven't changed human beings very much so far. We've certainly changed weapons of mass destruction, but we haven't made much progress with the human race, and we'll see what happens with that. But in the meantime, we'll see changes in auto insurance too, and cars, and that will be more. It'd be easier for us to deal with it than it was when we had to deal with the problems of turning out textiles in New England, and you deal with the world as it develops. And like I say, everybody here is living in the luckiest period, but enjoy your luck, and you still try to figure out the answers to what's going to happen in auto insurance as we go along, and we've done pretty well actually adapting to the answers. There's a few big problems in insurance, and I don't know how the insurance industry adapts to them particularly, but that makes the game interesting. You really don't. You wouldn't want to go out and play golf if you know you're going to hit the ball in the hole on every hole.
I'd just like to add, we talked about the shift to product liability and to protection for accidents that take place because of an error in terms of how the product was designed or supplied. The only thing I want to add is, in addition to that shift, I think what we'll see is a major shift where the number of accidents that take place and need to be provided for will drop dramatically because of automatic driving. But on the other hand, the cost per repair, every time there's an accident, the cost of repairing and bringing everything back to where it used to be would go up very significantly because of the amount of technology that's going into the car. How those two variables interact with each other in terms of the total cost of providing the insurance, I think is still an open issue.
I'll give you two interesting figures to ponder. When I walked into Geico's offices in 1950, the average price of a policy was around $40 a year. it varies all over the lot depending on location and everything. But you know, it's pretty easy to get up to $2,000, and depending on how urban your areas are and everything, you can get considerably higher. During that same time, the number of people killed in auto accidents have fallen from roughly 6 per 100 million miles driven to a little over 1. So the cars become incredibly safer, and it costs 50 times as much down or thereabouts to buy insurance policies. So when people talk about the developments in car driving and all that sort of thing, it's a lot easier sometimes. The Buck Rogers aspect of it, people look at, but they don't actually think of what really happens to the math of the business. The auto insurance industry has been a huge growth industry. And for that matter, homeowners insurance prices in Nebraska have doubled in the last 10 years, adjusted for general inflation and convective storms, have just gone on a tear, and it's still unprofitable to write a homeowner's insurance in Nebraska after doubling the price in the last 10 years. So it's very hard to predict what these big changes mean, and you just have to keep thinking all the time. But you don't want to read some research report that says the world's coming to an end or the world's going to be wonderful because of this or that, because there's about 50 other developments going on at the same time that you need to think about, and that you need to keep observing as you go along. You never reach an answer in this business. You reach a point of action that you take, but we try to get into as high probability things as we think we can do and play the game in the same way. But it will be different than you think, and you should wake up every morning and think about that too if you're in the business of managing businesses.